From novice to pro, these are warm-up strategies for short, medium, and long workouts. So I just had a really good conversation with a member, and they thought that they needed something different in their training protocols or their program itself. And then after chatting with them and asking them some questions and seeing what was actually going on underneath the hood, what I personally thought, in my professional opinion, was that it wasn't the workouts themselves, it was the warm up leading up to it. And so this was one of the biggest mistakes I've made both in coaching and personally when I was competing, is that I used to warm up the exact same way every time, but I would feel different in each workout. So I'm going to go over short, medium, and long workouts and how to warm up specifically for each one of these, because obviously, if you warm up the wrong way, you're not going to have the exact same stimulus for the workout itself. So the whole reason for warming up first is that, it prevents injury. But most importantly, I'm specifically going to be focusing today on performance and mindset. So we're going to break down how to warm up for short burners, medium workouts, and long grinders. So that way you're never guessing again. So let's go over short workouts first. So we're talking very short. So we're talking under 5 minutes. So like Fran, Grace, sprints. Even EMOMs can kind of fly into this because there is some sprints with some rest or slash intervals. So the most important thing here is that we have to prime the central nervous system. So, and the movement patterns themselves. Okay. So the issue is that most people under warm up for short workouts, so the heart rate is too low before going into it. And as soon as the workout spikes the heart rate and the lungs start getting tight in the diaphragm, what happens is they kind of start to panic and they're like, "Oh crap, this really sucks." And then they kind of just burn out early. And it's not that you're burning out early, it's just that you didn't warm up enough for this. And I'm sure you've done workouts before where maybe the first 5 to maybe 10 minutes actually sucked worse than maybe the last 5 or 10, because that's when your lungs kind of open up, your heart rate kind of steadies, you have better blood flow. So the issue is that if you don't warm up enough for a short workout, you're going to hit that kind of suckiness early. So the goal is to get that suckiness out of the way early in the warm up, and then the heart rate lowers, you kind of get some oxygen in the blood, and then you go and hit the actual workout itself. Now, I know this sounds kind of counterintuitive, and a lot of people think that they need to save their energy for the workout, especially if it's short, where that's actually completely false, okay? Like if you have like maybe 3 to 5 minutes before the workout to kind of rest and recover, you'll be completely fine. And if you're not, then you have a much bigger problem with your aerobic system, which I'm not going to get into now, but you can ask me in person. So the best way to warm up for a short workout, 5 minutes or under, is to, first off, you have to prime the aerobic system. So this is around between 10 to 20 minutes of light aerobic work. Okay, I prefer a machine. You can go for a run, but it has to be something cyclical. I wouldn't recommend jump roping, and I wouldn't recommend really doing any kind of barbell work. It has to be a rower, echo bike, biker, or running. Those are the best ones to use. Okay, and you have to get the heart rate up very high. So my personal favorites are rowing or echo bike, one of those. Okay. Now, after that, you want to do some dynamic stuff, kind of what we usually do. I'm not going to go into the details because we don't know what the workout is. So you want to prep whatever movements that you're typically doing there. Now, if you are doing actual static stretching, we actually want to do that 2 hours before your workout or 2 hours after. Okay. You don't want to do a ton of static stretching before. We want to do just enough to increase blood flow and mobility to the certain areas or muscle groups that we're going to be utilizing during the workout itself. Now, once we're primed and we are ready for we have oxygen in the blood. So the whole point of like the 10 to 20 minutes is simply just to get oxygen into the blood, okay, and to increase blood flow, okay. That's another reason why in short workouts, why you feel like you're burning out, is because you're going from like a sitting state to where suddenly now your body requires a ton of blood flow to the muscles, and on top of that blood flow, your muscles need oxygen, so you're breathing super hard. So our whole goal is to prime that system, the aerobic system, to deliver oxygen to your muscles during the workout. And then, so once we're there, I like to add some sprints. Okay. So right after like the 10 to 20 minutes I do, longer the better. Okay. I know that's going to be boring. Okay. I'm so sorry that it's boring, but guess what? Do you want to do well in the workout? Do you want to have the best workout possible? Then yes. And no, you're not going to get tired doing this. And please stop thinking that. I know you're thinking it right now, listening to it, but it's the truth. So suck it up. And so we're here, and then so you want to add about anywhere between 3 to 4 sprints of about 15 to 20 seconds. And we're talking like all out sprints. Now, again, you're going to think this is counterintuitive or counterproductive to the workout itself. And that's not true, because what we're doing is we're building up lactate in the system as fast as possible with using a cyclical movement like rowing or echo bike, the best ones. And then what you're training your body to do is to clear that lactate, because that's what's going to happen in the workout. So you're priming your body for what's going to happen in the workout. Now, the problem is if you don't prime this, then your body's going to panic and be like, oh, I need to clear lactate during the workout. Whereas if you just prime it before, it's already used to clearing lactate out of the system. So it's going to do that more efficiently during the workout itself. Okay. So now in terms after the rest period, you can really rest as long as you want to, but we're talking anywhere between 90 seconds to 2 to 3 minutes. Then after that, you hit that again multiple times. You try and increase your pace every time. That's also going to prime the lungs, because now your diaphragm is working and warming up. Your diaphragm is a muscle just like your other muscles, so you need to warm that up too. So that's the whole point. Okay, then after that, we get into the more specific movement patterns of the workout itself. That's where we start loading up the barbell, whatever we're doing that day, prime those movements. And then you actually want to hit those movements in the transitions themselves. Okay, so let's use an easy example. Let's just do thrusters and pull-ups like Fran. So let's say our workout's Fran at 21:15.9, barbell thrusters at 95:65, and pull-ups. Okay, so another mistake I see people make is they don't prime the movement or the transition back to the next exercise. So they'll do a good job of, let's say, knocking out like 5 thrusters and then 5 pull-ups, but then that's it. Then they rest, and then maybe they'll do it one more time. So your goal here is actually to do like a mini workout. Again, this is not counterproductive. This is good for you because you're knowing what it's going to feel like going from each exercise back to the original. So we're doing a good example of this is that we're going to do 5 thrusters, 5 pull-ups, and then 3 thrusters, 3 pull-ups, because we're priming the system what it's going to feel like after the pull-ups, so you don't get slapped in the face during the workout to where you come back to the thruster, you're like, oh my God, this is horrible. So thruster, pull-up, so that way we also work on our transition. So we know how fast we're going to be moving. We can work on transitioning the grip. So all these details matter into maximizing your workout itself. I know I kind of went off on a rant there. I kind of went on some details, but that's really the best way to do this. And what we focus on here is speed and control, because how many times have you picked up a barbell, even though it's light, you're kind of like, you fiddle around with your grip because you're just not warmed up for it, and you're just not ready to have, your body's not ready to control the bar. So that's what we're practicing here. And so the key takeaway of this, especially on the short workouts, is you don't need to save energy, but you need to wake up fast. You're waking up your nervous system. You're waking up your blood flow. You're waking up your oxygen. You're priming your nervous system. You're priming your body to clear lactate fast. And, so yeah, I covered that. So you're welcome. So next time you do that, do it the right way. Now let's go warm-ups for medium workouts. So we're talking kind of like now we're going to 10 plus minutes all the way up to 20 minutes. That's what I would consider a medium workout, the 10 to 20 minute range. Now the average CrossFit workout, at least in competitive CrossFit, is about 13 minutes. Now if we took all the workouts across all the events over all the games, open, semis, regionals, the average workout time is about 13 minutes. So this is what we call a medium workout. So we want to train a little bit under that, which is 10 minutes, a little bit over that, which is 20. So we're talking like Cindy, Helen, moderate AMRAPs or chipper style workouts. So kind of that middle ground workout. So this is where you still want to do about a 10 to 20 minute primer, because we want to prime the engine. We want to have a smooth ramp up. You want to prep the joints, lubricate the joints by doing the warm up and get your engine ready. So same thing about this one. You could probably get away with 10 minutes. I think 10 minutes is plenty. I think 20 is a little too long for this. Now, you always have to think the shorter the workout, the longer the warm-up, the longer the workout, the shorter the warm-up, okay? Depending on the skills involved, okay? There's always going to be exceptions to that rule depending on the workout itself. But the principles pretty much stay the same. And after this, we want to do some activation drills. So you want to just make sure everything's prepped, like hips, shoulders, T-spine. You want to do whatever, pull aparts, whatever. And then after that, that's when we kind of go into specific rounds. Now, you don't have to do as many reps, and you don't have to do as many transitions. So this is where you can get away with like kind of like that thruster example where I said you need to practice coming back to the movement itself. In a longer workout like this, unless it's like 10 minutes, you probably do want to do this. You want to come back to the weight and like the thruster. Again, like I said, like 5 thrusters, 5 pull-ups, 3 thrusters, 3 pull-ups. If it's 10-minute range, you might want to do that. It's just kind of personal preference. But if you're in the 20-minute range, you can just do probably one round of the workout with like 50% of the reps and be fine and be ready to go. Because the thing is that when you're doing a longer workout like that, which is in the 10 plus to 20-minute range, you don't want to over fatigue the muscles. You want to be prepped enough to where you're ready for it and you do enough reps to where, the coordination is there. So a good example of this would be like muscle ups, right? So if you know that you're doing bar muscle ups or ring muscle ups in the workout, you actually would want to do a lot of those in the warm up just to make sure. And we're not talking a lot in terms of unbroken reps, but at least stringing reps together because you don't want to hop up there and be shocked on the first few reps, right? And then you want to do a specific warm up of 2 to 3 rounds of that workout style, about 50 to 70%. And I always like to increase the pace first. So if I'm going to do 50% of the reps, I'm going to do 2 to 3 rounds. I want to start about 50% effort, take a break, 70, and then maybe 60% effort, take a break, and then 70% effort. And you want to gradually build that intensity so that way, because you do want to get sweaty, but you don't want to like totally cash out on there, like it's actually the workout itself, but you should move at a pace that's very aggressive. So that way, kind of like, okay, this is what I'm in for. And again, you want to know what the body's in for. And you should feel ready to start hard and be able to sustain that. Because if you start off too easy and the workout's like a little too light for you, you're just not going to get as much out of it as you could. So let's move into warm-ups for long workouts. So this is where 20 minutes plus. So now we're getting up in that Murph style. So hero WODs, long EMOMs, or endurance workouts. This is where you don't need to warm up nearly as much. We're talking maybe like 5 minutes on the rower or echo bike, and this is where it's going to be more of a pacer. You just need to do a few reps of everything that you're doing in a lower intensity setting because you need to be able to sustain that. So you don't need to be as prep for that. And the goal here is efficiency, pacing, and pacing awareness, and just mental prep, because the biggest mistake you're going to make on a workout like this is you're going to go out too hot. Pretty simple. And then you also want to make sure that you're mentally prepped for this, because we've all been there where we're doing a 20-minute plus workout. We look up at the clock and we're like, oh my God, I have so far to go. So you want to make sure that you're also ready for that. And you're like, okay, and also time it. So I like to do a full round and time it and see how long that takes, and then rest right before the workout starts and being like, okay, I have this kind of a set expectations here. I kind of know what there's going to be some sort of a drop off. So I need to be aware of that. So a good structure here, like I said, about 5 to 10 minutes of easy pace, cardio movement, not all out. You just want to get the nervous system prepped and get some oxygen in the blood. Then you want to do a mobility check, hips, shoulders, specific to the volume itself. And then pacing prep. I would always say only maybe 1 to 2 rounds of, again, 50% of the reps, and just checking off the boxes and just making sure that the transitions are dialed in. You know where all your equipment is, and that you also are ready for whatever is there is to come. And you want to do kind of a brief heart rate spike and then rest. So that's essentially what you're doing with the 1 to 2 rounds prep, is you're just kind of just boosting up the heart rate a bit and then going on from there. And then you want to practice the transitions and the breathing itself. So that's where I do like to transition a little bit faster than what I would do in the workout. So that way I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to go at a slower pace in terms of the transitions. So now I can focus on my breathing while I'm kind of a little bit fatigued here in the warm up, but then, I'll take a few minutes off and then we'll start and I'll be fine. And long workouts really aren't about feeling ready. They're about staying smart early. Okay. So I always tell people, in terms of a pacing standpoint, to always start off at about 80%, and you can always increase later. So you want to warm up with strategy in mind. And if you're doing a 20+ minute workout, there's really no reason to go out super hot. The whole point here is to be able to sustain and then go. You should really finish strong in the last 2 to 5 minutes of the workout. That's when you really start pushing and ramping it up. And that's, again, a big mistake that I see people do, is that they go out super hot in these long workouts. And then as they get towards the end, they just completely burn out and the reps get sloppy, and it's just not fun for anyone. So you want to make sure that those workouts themselves are prepped properly. And so the key takeaways here is that you want to match your warm up to the intent and to the length of the session. So just think, the shorter the workout, the longer the warm up needs to be. And again, one thing I forgot to mention with the short workouts is that you want to do a lot of reps, especially because if it's going to be a low rep workout. So the last thing you want to happen is that you're just not primed and ready, especially for the nervous system or the body, to be in certain positions. So you have to do a lot of reps beforehand and rest in between. A long time ago, where I did, what was the workout? It was Amanda. So Amanda is 975 of ring muscle ups, and squat snatches at 135. And I was at a local competition. This was the final event. Everyone was tired, but I knew that this workout was very low rep. Okay, so I mean, what that is 21 reps of each. And so I'm like, okay, it's only 21 reps of each. I cannot afford to make any mistakes here. I cannot afford to miss reps. I can't afford to have a bad jump on the rings. I cannot afford to have my shoulders not prepped and my hips not prepped. So I did a long warm up. On top of that, I did a ton of transitions. I probably did at least 21 of each in the warm up area, transitioning back and forth. I would do 3 unbroken ring muscle ups, 3 unbroken squat snatches at 135. Then I'd come back to the rings. I would do 2 and 2. And I would do that. I probably did that for about 3 rounds where everybody else barely they warmed up. Like they did a few snatches. They were kind of walking around. They did a few muscle ups, kind of walked around. But the problem is they weren't prepped aerobically, or their body wasn't ready for the amount of lactate to build up. Whereas I was, because I was already prepped to clear it and also to transition back to the rings. Because if you ever done Amanda before, if you going from ring muscle ups to snatches, both very shoulder intensive. So you have to make sure your shoulders are very prepped and ready for that. Because a lot of people will miss their first snatch. If you go back to when the first workout first premiered at the 2010 CrossFit Games, you see Jason Kalipa go for his first squat snatch at 135, and he's a strong dude, and it looked atrocious. Like he looked like he was at a track meet. He just caught the snatch and just ran towards the camera, and the camera guy, you see the camera guy look like a found footage film, just like bolts to the side. And so you want to make sure that you're prepped for that and you're ready and your positioning is good. And then coming back to the snatches after, after the muscle ups, you're like, okay, and then the shoulders just don't feel as good because you're stabilizing the weight overhead. And I ended up doing that workout in about 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and I ended up winning the entire competition. I was already ahead in points, but I solidified it and won the final workout there. And it was very satisfying to win and left everybody else in the dust in that event. It was one of my few local competition first place finishes, and it's one of my proudest achievements was wiping everyone with the floor, simply because and it wasn't even because I won the workout, it was because I knew I prepped better than they did in the warm-up area. And if you've ever been at a competition with me, if I've ever helped you warm up, you know exactly how specific I am with my warm-ups. And it's something that I take great pride in because it's a very hidden and underrated way to win. And it's a great way to also just be ready and maximize your work. Even if you're not competitive, it's an outstanding way to just be better and maximize what you get out of the workout itself. Because if you spend the first few minutes of the workout quote unquote warming up, then you're not maximizing your potential of what you can get out of the workout itself. And you're there to get fitter, so you might as well use the warm up to what they're actually built for. And so what I do is I really encourage you guys to test and refine how you like to warm up. Try some of my strategies. So really break it down to this. Do 10 to 20 minutes of an aerobic exercise, run, row, or echo bike. Those are the best ones. No biker, because that doesn't get your upper body involved. And then if you need some more assistance on warm-ups, or if you're just not feeling it, feel free to contact me or DM me or talk to me in person. I'd be more than happy to structure something more specifically for you, because again, I just kind of touched on this in a very broad perspective. But then again, if you're coming to the gym and you see a workout and you're like, what can I do beforehand in this workout? Simply just row, echo bike, or run for 10 minutes, gradually increasing the intensity. That's another thing I forgot to add, is that you do want to kind of ramp it up. You don't want to be at a steady state the entire time. You want to gradually you should be sweaty after this, and you should be breathing a little hard. Like if you're doing it too easy, you're not going to get the full benefit out of it, because the whole point is to prep that system and then to rest before the workout itself starts. So if this was helpful, do me a favor, share this with a friend, leave me a 5-star review, subscribe, whatever, follow me. It's really helpful, because every time I see the numbers go up, I get really excited and I get all giddy. So do that as a favor towards me. That's all I ask of you, because it may help someone else. And also I still stay motivated to make all this content for you guys. So until next time, good luck, have fun, and nailed it.